Now, let's start first by discussing which foods would be most affected. I understand baked goods are especially dependent on these artificial trans fats.
That's right, baked goods and also some canned frosting is one of them. Trans fats are used for certain textures and to be able to make the foods shelf stable, so they last longer on your grocery store shelves. So you've got pie crusts, cake mixes, and some biscuits that might have some trouble finding substitutions for trans fats, and the same with canned frosting because it helps make it spreadable.
So does that mean certain companies can get waivers if they apply for it? What would be the conditions under which they would be granted waivers?
That's a little bit unclear, the conditions as of now. So the FDA will not allow any trans fats in food unless a company comes to them with data that shows that the low levels that they would like to use in their food would not harm the American public when they eat them. So we don't know what that data exactly will look like yet. The Grocery Manufacturers Association says that they're going to be able to prove that, so there might be some small amounts used, but they will have to get FDA approval to use them.
Okay, so they'll have to take costly steps to get there. In the meantime, a lot of companies had been anticipating this and were already looking at alternatives. Are there any estimates out there in terms of how much this would cost the food industry?
The FDA estimated it to be about $6.2 billion. That's over 20 years, so they didn't put out a year-by-year estimate that I've seen, at least not yet. And so it would be that amount to find the substitutions and also to take the kind of relabel their products.
So, as I mentioned, this ruling can't have been a surprise, and we've discussed how many companies have used alternative ingredients in anticipation that they would need to reduce the trans fat composition of their food. Are there alternative ingredients necessarily healthier for the American public?
That's a good question. So one of the probably go-to ingredients that they could substitute would be palm oil. And a scientist that I spoke to said that it's not the best thing in the world, but it is at least a little bit healthier, whereas trans fat can raise your bad cholesterol and lower your good cholesterol. Something like palm oil might just raise the bad cholesterol a little bit.
Gotcha. And New York City was the first to ban trans fats from restaurants. It was followed by some other places, but this is on a federal level regarding the food that you buy at the grocery store.
That's right, yeah, and also, it could include food that is cooked in restaurants as well.
Okay, gotcha. By the way, a quick question here, Anna. Was there ever a time when trans fat was considered healthy or not necessarily dangerous? I feel like once upon a time, people were convinced that this was a good alternative.
Yeah, much like a lot of things that we eat and what we're told on how they affect our health, trans fats have been in use for decades and were, I think, thought to be at least better than, say, like lard or something along those lines. But obviously thinking has changed since then.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a victim of its time.